And we are live. Our next guest on the podcast is a friend of the show who, the last time he was on, introduced us to the concept of living on the road. Now he's settled down in sunny Cleveland, Ohio, where he runs the website Phandroid. Get all the latest news and reviews at Phandroid. This podcast not brought to you by Phandroid. After you check out the podcast, of course, you can go check out Phandroid for all the latest news about the world of Android. But for now, let's give a hearty welcome back to the show, Nick Gray. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, sir. Great to be back.
It's awesome to have you back, and it's a damn shame that it took too long. It's been almost like 2 years now, right?
Yeah, I think it's right around 2 years.
Something like that, you know. I mean, I admit, like, I don't want to, I don't want to like bring back guests too frequently, but 2 years is too long, and shame on me. Consider myself chastised. But we are here to talk about the OnePlus 10 Pro as opposed to the OnePlus 10, which doesn't exist. So we're here to talk about the Pro version of the phone that doesn't exist, the OnePlus 10 Pro. I have been using it for a couple of weeks now, and I'm assuming you're probably in the same boat, probably a couple of weeks at this point. Let me
I
ask
am.
you this: which case did you go with?
I split between the two. I don't know.
Okay.
The first one, the sandstone one,
Yeah.
and then whatever the design.
The
I don't know.
computery.
It's the computery design. I had this one, the computery design one on for about, I don't know, a week and a half, and then the last week I've been using the other one just to switch it up a little bit. But honestly, I do like this computery design one that they've given. I think they started off with the original OnePlus Nord that they made, one of these ones, and I really liked it for the Nord. It's kind of holographic a little bit. It's got a print. I don't know. I want to say like a slight 1/4 millimeter below the surface. It kind of looks a little bit 3D if you look at it from different angles. So it's kind of cool. A little bit different than everything else you see on the market.
Yeah, I've been going sandstone myself just because of the throwback, the nostalgia quality
The
of it,
original.
because the OG sandstone. But I realized when I was walking around New Orleans with, 4 phones in my pocket, that having the sandstone cover rubbing up against the screen of the Samsung probably wasn't the best idea.
Probably not. No.
Yeah, so I had to make sure this one was on the outside. But yeah, so let's talk about the OnePlus 10 Pro because that's kind of what we're here to do. I want to get your overall, just your high level view. What's your overall impression of the OnePlus 10 Pro?
High level view. This one's a little bit hard because I actually just finished writing the intro to my review, which
Okay.
I'm still trying to work my way through. And I rewrote the intro about 4 different times because I came back to it a couple days later, and my overall opinion of this phone keeps changing the more I use it. At first,
Okay.
I was disappointed simply looking at specifications of the phone, what it offered, the price. And then as I started using it more, I came around a little bit towards it. And then I used it a little bit more and said, screw this. I'm going back to my Pixel 6 Pro. I don't even want to finish the review. And now I'm back at it. And I'm like, it's really hard for me to pinpoint exactly what I like and don't like about this phone. Overall, I would say it's a good phone for somebody who still wants a OnePlus phone. And for anyone else, find something else.
So you have to specifically want the OnePlus brand in order to enjoy this phone, at least in your humble opinion.
Yeah, and I would say good at best, not great, not amazing, good at best. And there's a couple different caveats for that. And for me, I think OnePlus really has, like a lot of people, there was a lot of sentiment around the brand over the last years as the brand grew up. And there was a lot of passion around the phone and passion in the development side and passion on the fan side as well. And I think the passion has died out on both ends of the stick, both ends of the candle there. And it's still a good phone. The passion, though, has left the building.
Okay. All right. I see where you're going with that. I mean, like, I'm picking up what you're putting down there. Personally, like, high level view, I think I have to. So, I have a history with OnePlus. And we talked about this a little bit on the Doubting Thomas monthly recap that just came out earlier this week. But my history with this phone is OnePlus has. I've never been one of the OnePlus fanatics. Like I've always been interested in OnePlus as a more of a concept rather than like an actual brand, just
Hmm.
because they were the flagship killer and they brought killer specifications for a super low price. And then they started to grow up, and like you said, they started to grow up and kind of sit at the big boys table. Now they've developed their own flagship products, which in my humble opinion can stand toe to toe with just about any other flagship that's out there right now. But at the same time, when the OnePlus 9 came around last year, when the OnePlus 9 Pro came around last year, I have bought iPhones for the show, for the podcast. I have bought Samsung phones for the podcast. I have bought Pixel phones for the podcast, all happily. When it came time to order the OnePlus 9 Pro, I ordered it, but I really didn't want to.
Hmm.
Like, I recognize it's important as a brand, and especially as a brand in the United States, which is woefully devoid of brands. It's good to have another voice in the United States, and I like that it's OnePlus's voice, but just the phones themselves have never really blown me away. I'm not an Oxygen OS acolyte. I am not a fast and smooth, whatever that means. Like that, none of that really impresses me. But at the same time, like I've used this phone for a couple of weeks now, and I haven't really felt an incredible urge to go back to like the Samsung, Galaxy S22 Ultra, which will probably end up being my daily driver for at least my 6 months of Android that I'm on. So,
Hmm.
but I haven't felt like a really strong pull. So, I mean, OnePlus is keeping me in the game as far as that's concerned. It's that's just kind of so. I kind of agree with you that it's like I think it's a good phone. I just don't think it's a desirable phone.
Yeah, it's for me what you said about last year's OnePlus 9 Pro, and I kind of touching on this point, and I'm circling around it in my review, is the price last year was bad because of the
Yes.
fact that they launched only with the 12 gigabyte model with 256 of storage. This year, they rolled it back and said, okay, no, we're only launching with the 8 gigabyte model with 128, which gives it a price difference of, what is it, $139 price difference between last year's device and this year's device, which makes this one a lot more appealing than last year's phone. When last year's
Hmm.
phone came out, I was scratching my head. I was like, where did they go wrong? And I was like, number one place was the price. They kind of scared people off with that price point.
Yeah.
And this, technically, if you're matching this phone up against other devices on the market here in the US specifically, its number one competitor is going to be the Samsung Galaxy S20, what is that, S22
S22
Plus,
plus
which is $1,000 phone. So this does have a $100 price advantage over that.
advantage. Hmm.
Um, and then there's the Pixel 6 Pro, which is its other main competitor here in the US, and that is the same exact price. But when I look at this phone versus the Pixel 6 Pro, I ask myself, why would I want this versus the Pixel 6 Pro? Because there's nothing that this truly offers that's an advantage over Google's device, when it comes to the cameras, when it comes to the software, when it comes to the build quality. It might be the look and the design of this phone. I mean, honestly, I do love how this phone looks. I've always
Hmm.
loved when Samsung came out with that unibody design with the camera module that's baked into the rail of the phone. And then OnePlus kind of took that and expanded it out to the middle of the device. I think
Yeah,
this looks absolutely gorgeous. And I'm sure you can agree that the soft touch finish on this phone is beyond anything that's on the market right now, especially here in the US.
it
It
is quite
looks
nice.
and feels amazing. But other than that, for me, there's really not much going for it when you stack it up against its two major competitors. Samsung does have the advantage that it's in every single store. It doesn't matter if you're going prepaid here in the US. It doesn't matter if you're going to T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, or any of the MVNOs that are out there. Everyone's selling Samsung's phone. Whereas this one, where are you going to find it? You're going to find it maybe in a T-Mobile store, and that's about it. And also, it doesn't work on AT&T's 5G network, right?
Right.
With its mid-band. And so it's like, so you can't go on Verizon. It doesn't work on AT&T, and T-Mobile, congratulations. Like,
I don't know. Can does it work on Verizon? I
well,
don't
I think it
know the
does work on Verizon,
specifications.
yes, but Verizon's not selling it.
Not Verizon's not selling it. You'd have to buy an
Yeah, you have
unlocked
to buy it
version.
unlocked. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it
So
kind of
yeah.
limits, and we know, especially here in the US, the majority of people go to their service provider to buy a phone. They don't go to Best Buy, they don't go to
Right.
Amazon, or they don't go
Right.
to the cell phone manufacturer's website. They go to their service provider's brick and mortar store and say, I want a new phone. And
Right.
that's what they buy.
Yeah, and in this case, it has to be a T-Mobile store.
Mm-hmm.
It can't even
Yeah.
be.
I mean, at
So
least at T-Mobile, it's got good placement. I mean,
right.
T-Mobile's been their brand that they've been going to as far as service providers here in the US, and they have really good placement within the stores. They have a whole OnePlus section that's pretty well represented there.
Hmm.
At least they have that going for them.
Yeah, definitely. Although right now there's only one OnePlus phone on the wall, so maybe it's slightly less in a section these days. But yeah, you're
Well,
right. I mean,
they're selling the Nord N10 and the N100.
are they still?
There's those are. I was actually at a T-Mobile store a couple weeks ago. Yeah, and they're selling their mid-range devices or their budget-friendly devices,
They are
and
okay. Yeah,
they've got those on display at least.
I have honestly really lost track of the Nord series just in general because it's like there's different variants in different regions and different.
It's
I kind of
becoming really complicated really fast.
yeah, I let my UK people worry about that. But anyway, but yeah, so I definitely agree. There's some disadvantages this time around, but at the same time, like I said, I do keep going back to it. So I guess there is something to be said for that. And one other advantage that you didn't mention, which I don't know that maybe this isn't important to you, but fast charging is it blows the
Yes.
Pixel and the Samsung away. Now, and you might be thinking, and some of my listeners might be thinking, so what? I don't care. Well, I mean, since I got the OnePlus 10 Pro, I've been forcing myself to no longer charge the phone overnight. I have only relied on fast charging. And what I'll do is, I'll go to bed, leave my phone on the bedside table next to me, not on a charger or anything like that. And whenever I need to charge, I'll plug it in. And the great thing is, half an hour later, it is full. And
Fully charged. Yep.
and the day I left to go to New Orleans, I had to be at the airport at 7 o'clock in the morning, or I had to leave for the airport at 7 o'clock in the morning. I woke up at 6:30, plugged the phone in, and unplugged it and went, and it was at 100% when it was time to go. And even while I was in New Orleans, we had different appointments, different times, different places. I would just charge it when I needed to, and I have to say, like, I expected there to be some difficulties along the way, some bumps along the road, like, oh, shoot, I forgot to charge my phone and now I'm at 20%. What am I going to do? That hasn't happened yet, because even when I do say, oh, shoot, I need to plug in my phone, I can plug in my phone for literally the time it takes me to pull on my shoes and socks, and I'm getting 15, 20% in that
Hmm.
time. It's insane how fast this thing charges.
Yeah, and so for people who don't know, so it's supposed to charge at 65 watts here in the US. The international version is supposed to charge at 85 watts.
Yeah,
But
80,
and there
I
was a
believe, but
or
yeah.
80 watts, and there
Yep.
was a little bit of backlash about people saying, "Well, we're getting a slower version." Apparently, there's an issue with the charging brick versus with 110 power
110.
versus
Yeah.
220, and the amount of amps and whatever they're pushing through. But there's only a 3-minute difference in the charge time between the 80-watt charger and the 65-watt charger.
Right.
So you're looking at 37 minutes ish
Yeah.
versus
Something like that.
33. It's not a huge difference. But also keep in mind, this also charges a lot faster than pretty much any other phone on the market using power delivery chargers as well. I
Hmm.
believe it charges at top speed at 45 watts on power delivery. But also for a lot of people not in the know about this, those high or those high numbers are only achieved for like 2 or 3 minutes at the
Right.
very beginning if the phone battery is completely at 0.
Yeah, those are peak
And
numbers.
so you plug it in, it goes to 65 watts from 0 to about 3%, and then it drops to, I believe, 45 watts for till like 7%, and then it drops to 35 watts till it gets
Right.
to about 85 or 90%, and then it slows down from there. Um, so like I think it's still a marketing thing. Like they're 65 watts. I'm like, you give me 3% at
Oh,
65 watts.
it's
Like
100% a marketing thing. Yeah, no,
like
no question
let's
about
call
that.
it a 35 watt charger because that's where it sticks for most of the time. But I mean,
Right.
compared to a Samsung device where it says it's 25 watts and it charges at 21 or 22 most of the time, it is so much faster. But the fact that you can actually use a power delivery charger and get almost the same speeds if you have a fast enough power delivery charger with this device. It's really impressive. So yes, I did miss that before. I will say though, like the one thing that I do like with that with the fast charging, it is very impressive, even with the OnePlus's wireless charger that has the little
Hmm.
fan built in. That honestly, you put it on there and you hear the fan spin up. Like, "Vzz,"
Yep.
gonna keep this phone cool. But personally, I'm the type of person who does leave my phone plugged in overnight. So I haven't switched to your approach yet of just plugging it in. But the handful of times that I have needed to, go out of the house really quick, and I'm, sitting at 20%, I'm like, okay, 10 minutes as I get ready, plug it in, come back in 10 minutes, and I got, an extra 30% charge in those 10
Right.
minutes, which on my Pixel 6 Pro, 10 minutes will give me like 9%.
Right. Right. It's a huge difference. And I have to say, like, it has been eye-opening, like, just how much more convenient that is. That being said, once I'm done doing that particular experiment, I'm probably going to go back to just charging it overnight and call it a
Yeah.
day,
Well, I mean, that's the
because
easiest thing to do, right?
it is. I mean, it really is. And there's really no reason not to do it, you know?
No, and the old wives' tale, I mean, back in the day, it wasn't an old wives' tale about leaving your phone plugged in overnight is bad for the battery. But all of these phones now have smart charging capabilities built in. Google's phone will realize, the Pixel 6 will realize it's being charged overnight,
Hmm.
and it will slow down the charge rate when it's plugged in overnight, and then it'll boost your charge. It actually has a smart charging capability. It'll boost the charge the last 30 minutes before you wake up in the morning because that's when it knows you're going to be waking up, and that's when
Hmm.
it reaches full charge. I was just charging the new not the Samsung, the Motorola Edge that just came out, and I actually left it on a wireless charger because it has their version of fast wireless charging at 15 watts. And it would actually fluctuate. I left it on the charger and it would actually get to 100%, and then it would turn it off and not charge
Hmm.
at all and go back down to 94%. And then it wouldn't charge again until it reached 94% and then charge back up to 100% instead of just, trickle charging the entire time. So
Right.
these phones all have smart charging technology so that they're not degrading the battery. If you keep it plugged in 24/7, that's not going to happen. Five
Yeah.
years ago, definitely that was the case. But now the charging technology inside of our smartphones is so advanced that you don't even have to worry about, oh no, I left my phone plugged in overnight.
Yeah. And these days, Sony, if I remember correctly, has a setting where you can specifically tell Sony just slowly charge my
Yep.
battery. So
Yep.
that's nice too.
Yeah, and I
But
mean, so there's a lot of cars with the electric cars that are out there. There you can choose, what's your maximum charging. I want to charge it to 90% or
mhm.
80%, and you can choose your max charge. And there's some smartphones that are out there now that are doing that same thing. You can
Laptops too.
artificially limit the top charging mark that your phone will get to.
Yeah, laptops too. My MSI, I believe, I can top it out at like 60% charge since I leave it plugged in all the time. And
Hmm.
so that's what I do. Of course, when you take it off the plug at 60%, it only lasts about
It'll last
6
by about
minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah. But anyway, so we should move on. We already talked about the hardware, which is great. We should talk about the software for a little bit. How you liking Color OS?
Color OS, I have this love-hate relationship with, mainly within the last 2 years. And that's when a lot of people actually started complaining about Color OS because it was this stripped down version of Android that had a couple tweaks, very customizable. and very powerful, very light. And then this whole thing with we're merging it with Oppo software, and we're using the base software, and but we're still keeping our own skin. It is a If you go back 2 years ago, the software on these phones is dramatically different, and I don't think it's in moving in the right direction. There's things that I do like about it. There's just a whole lot that's there now that I don't think original OnePlus users would want to see on a OnePlus device. That being said, though, Oppo, as far as Chinese OEM goes, and the custom skin that they have on all of their phones, whether it's, or I'll take it back one step further, BBK,
Hmm.
the software on all BBK phones, I think is better than any other Chinese OEM that's out there. They have definitely a far superior base to work with. The software on most of their devices is actually pretty consistent when it comes to the features that they offer, the customizations, the look and feel of the UI. Um, so I don't mean to say it's a bad thing the way that OnePlus's software has evolved. It's just different than what the expectation was for OnePlus fans. For
Yeah.
people who were used to that near stock Android experience, that's no longer what you're getting here. It's
Hmm.
still really good compared to what you get on Xiaomi devices and all the other brands that are out there. I actually think it's a bit, better than Samsung software experience as well. So it's just, if you were a fan of OnePlus's software 2 years ago, you might not be a fan of it now.
That's fair. That's very fair. And I would have to agree. Like Samsung's software is good. I think the biggest quirk that I have with Samsung software is the app launcher, the side-scrolling app launcher.
Mm,
I hate that,
from
man. That bad
1992.
boy. It's so. Would it be so hard to let you go around, like to go from Z down to A? Would it be so
And
hard?
every video that I publish, someone leaves a comment. Well, there's this one thing you can download from the Samsung App Store that will change it so that you can scroll the opposite direction. I'm like,
F that.
but just build it in. By that
Yeah.
time, I installed an alternate launcher and I'm done with it anyways. So
Right. But yeah, so now my reviewer at Digital Trends, Andy Boxall, had the, I guess, the opportunity, the unfortunate opportunity, however you want to call it, to review a Realme phone, followed by an Oppo phone, followed by the OnePlus phone, which basically was all the same software. And
mhm.
when he came back to it, he said, this is Color OS, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, I get that. Like the one thing about the software that I haven't seen mentioned a whole lot is that for some reason my OnePlus keeps feeding me like random notifications. Like I'll get it, and obviously this doesn't apply to you, Mister I don't look at notifications, but like I'll get a new notification, like a new text message, and for some reason the thing that flashes up on the always on display is like an old Teams message from 3 days ago. And I don't
Hmm.
get that. And I've seen my Samsung phone do it a couple of times too. But again, you're Mr. No Notifications, so I guess
Well,
that
no
doesn't really.
notification sounds. So I
No
have
notifications. Oh, you
notifications.
do have no. Okay. Okay.
Notifications are on. It's just there's no notification sound. So my phones are all on silent.
Right.
Um,
Are
and
you
so
watching them? Like, I mean, do you see them when they pop up?
no, so
Right.
I usually have my phones. I have a Logitech keyboard that has a stand for smartphones built in.
Oh yeah,
Um,
the K
K
830, K
whatever it is, yeah.
380.
And so
Yep.
I can fit four phones on it. But I
Same.
take
Same.
my phone, I flip it backwards, and I put it on the stand, so the display isn't even showing when I'm sitting at my desk. Because like I have Telegram open, I have my Twitter notifications open on my desktop,
Sure.
but when I'm at my desk, my phone is simply there to be there because I need it close to me in case I get a call or something like that. But everything that I need to do work is on my screen, and then I'll take my phone with me throughout the house and stuff. But yeah, I don't have my notification sounds turned on ever. So the only thing that actually comes through are phone calls. And, that's the only important thing in life for me right now.
Such an amazing workflow. I could learn so much from you.
But
But
I get easily distracted by other things. Like I should be working, but I need to play one more round of Wild Rift.
mm,
you know, just because my rank isn't high enough. So
You see something shiny, I get it.
I get distracted by those kinds of things instead of the notifications.
Fair. That is a very fair point. So, like personally, this Oxygen OS has never impressed me, and I've been very vocal about that. I'm not going to apologize for it. So some people like it. That's cool. This particular iteration of the software seems fine, and I would say, yeah, you're probably right. I would arguably say that this is preferable to Samsung's software. I don't know. It's really such a toss up, but I
So
don't know.
this isn't a specific knock on the software or comment about the software itself, but Google rolled out all these widgets with Android 12, especially for the clock widget. And I was not aware of this, but you can actually download the Google Clock from the Play Store
Hmm.
and get all of Google's clock widgets along with it,
Hmm.
because you get only the OnePlus clock widget on here. I think they have 2 or 3 of them, and they're pretty plain. But if you liked the stock Android clock widgets that you've been seeing in Android 12, you can download Google's clock. Just search Google Clock on the Play Store, and you can download that, and you get all their clock widgets along with it. And so I've been using those because I thought their clock widgets on the ColorOS were pretty bland
Hmm.
and unimaginative.
Hmm.
So I've been using that. But yeah, for me, the customizations that they have on their software are really nice. There's so much you can do as far as customization goes. You can't color pick from your wallpaper like you can with the icons, like you can on
Yeah.
a Pixel device, but you can color theme the UI features a little bit on that end. You know, honestly, the Google's color picker theme is not available for other OEMs to use yet.
Hmm.
Some OEMs have kind of like hacked their own version, but the one that's built into Android isn't available to OEMs to use in their builds of Android yet. So hopefully that's going to be coming with Android 13.
Hopefully.
But as far as the software, the one tweak that I really despised about this phone until I turned it off was the swipe down from the right hand side of the screen,
For the
which
shelf,
opens up their shelf.
I have never
Um,
liked the shelf in any app in any iteration of any version of Oxygen OS. I have never
yep.
liked the shelf.
So I turned it off, but then I went back and was exploring it a little bit more. But their shelf is actually a little bit more powerful this time around, where you can actually put in all of your widgets, Android widgets within the shelf. So
Hmm.
it's a little bit more like iOS, where you can customize that screen with all of your widgets in one spot and have your calendar widget and a clock widget and weather widgets. And so after a while I customized it and spent, you know, probably a good hour tweaking things and customizing it. And now I'm using it. I just am annoyed with the placement of it because I use my phone with my right hand and I swipe
Right.
down from the right hand side. And so I have to reach over to the left hand side in order to pull down the notification shade and get to the quick toggles and my other notifications rather than the shelf. So I wish
Okay.
they would let you access the shelf in another way. If there is another way, please let me
Yeah.
know because I would love to know. Um, I I probably there probably is 5 different ways you can access it. I just haven't found them yet, and I could probably do a Google search to figure them out. So don't hate me.
That's fine. I don't hate you. I never will. No, I turned the shelf off pretty much right away because I was trying to swipe down my notifications. I'm like, what is this?
Like, go away. I don't want
Right.
this.
Just like I said a long time ago, there's probably a data analyst wondering why the most popular search for Bixby is fuck. What is this Bixby?
How
Anyway,
to remove Bixby. That's why we write an article for every smartphone that comes out. How to remove Bixby from X phone.
right, right. So, all right. So we should move on to the cameras. Have you had a lot of camera experience with the? Well, I mean, you're sitting down to write your review, so presumably you have. How
Hmm.
have you found the camera experience to be?
I found the camera experience to be okay. If you used last year's phone and you use this year's phone, there's honestly not much different. The main camera sensor is actually the same exact one as last year's. You do get a slightly wider ultra wide. You now have the 150-degree field of view with that new lens that they've stuck on there.
That's
But the
more than
sensor,
slightly, but yeah.
well, but you have to enter a specific camera mode. I need to remind people of this. It's not available within the regular viewfinder. If you go to the
Yeah.
viewfinder, you get the ultra wide and you're like, oh, this is 150 degree. And you're like, no, it's not. You actually have to go
No.
into the mode screen and then select 150 degrees in order to see that. And then
Yeah,
you
that is
see
very
the real
simple.
difference there. Um, it's hit or miss. I like the idea of 150 degrees. I think maybe it's a little too wide.
Huh.
It's definitely a lot more distorted than what you're typically used to because 150 degrees, you're not going to find a straight line in that shot at all.
Right.
But I wish they would add it into the regular viewfinder mode so that you could go to from, the main lens to the ultra wide, which is a cropped version of the 150 degree, and then
Mhm.
you zoom out again to the 150 degree and have it all within one spot rather than having to go specifically to there. But also, you can't record video with the 150 degree. Which I think is a huge disappointment. And it's the same thing that they did on one of the Realme devices that launched at MWC, not able to record video from the 150 degree field view.
I'm not sure you'd want to, but that's fair.
I mean, but like if you want to take like why wouldn't you have that option? Like
Well,
if
yeah.
if you're gonna promote a new 150 degree ultra wide camera, like record button, please. Like,
Yeah, I just think the fisheye effect would be very disorienting when you're trying to
well, give us
move
the
with it.
option though.
No, that's fair. That's
Give
fair.
us the option, right?
Better to
I
have
don't
it
I
and
don't
not
know if
need
it's
it.
an issue with the sensor not being able to do full readout of that sensor for 4K video.
Mm. I would
But
imagine
as
it's
far
probably
as
more of a software issue. Like
I would imagine so.
just trying to correct that distortion on the fly during a video, that would probably be
But
very
don't
processor
don't
intensive.
even correct it. Just give it how it is, right? But my other disappointment with this phone and every other BBK group phone is that the selfie camera, even though this is a new and improved imaging sensor for the selfie camera, you
Mhm.
still can't record 4K video. There is
Mm.
no BBK phone on the market. None of them can record 4K video from the selfie camera, which Google's Pixel 6 Pro can do. A lot of Samsung devices can do. Even the Galaxy S21 FE can record 4K video at 30 FPS from its selfie camera.
Yeah.
And if you're selling a $900 smartphone, you should be able to record 4K video from the selfie camera.
I agree. I agree. That is a very fair criticism. That being said, I mean, personally, I so rarely use selfie video. Like but yeah, I'm not gonna yuck your yum. If you
But
if you
like,
want to record 4K,
imagine,
you should be able
just
to.
think about how many people are on TikTok and Instagram and
Yeah,
recording videos for those social media platforms. And then honestly, that's the main place that any of
that's
these
the main
videos are
use
going to be
case.
going.
Yeah,
Someone's setting up their phone, they're talking to the camera. Personally, if it's me, I'm flipping the phone around because I know I can use the rear camera and it's going to be better quality. But the average
right,
consumer doesn't know that. They just
right.
turn the camera on and want to record. And with social media being as big as it is these days, especially social media as far as video goes, from YouTube to Instagram to TikTok to all of these platforms, 4K is a must. I mean, even
Yeah,
if even if the final video quality that's being uploaded and you're streaming it and whatever is not
it's
4K,
compressed down. Yeah,
the original, if you can actually have the 4K file so that it can be used for other things, it's an
yeah.
incredible difference when you compare it to 4K to 1080p.
You've sold me. Absolutely, you have sold me. 4K or GTFO, bro.
Exactly.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
I
Yeah.
mean, I asked, there was a Q&A with some of the engineers from BBK at the Oppo booth in Mobile World Congress, and I specifically asked that question because the Oppo Find X5 Pro doesn't have a 4K camera on the front,
Hmm.
and they said, well, we improved the camera, and our number one thing with the Oppo Find X5 Pro this year was that new image processor that they're using that does incredible job for low light image processing. And I was like, well, you can do more than two things at once, right? You could do
Right.
an image processor and also give me 4K. Like, it's
Yeah.
not an
A
exclusive
team.
thing.
Yeah. And especially since OnePlus is sharing resources with Oppo, that should
Well, I
be
mean, they're not sharing resources anymore. OnePlus is just an Oppo brand. It's a sub brand, kind of
fair. Fair.
like the HTC Desire was a sub brand for HTC and HTC One. They're just is
Yeah.
one and the same, and they're not beating around the bush anymore about that.
Righto. Righto. So, okay. Over. What about? Have you noticed anything with like night performance in particular that's amazing or or not amazing? What have you seen?
So as far as the main camera sensor goes, I would have to say the main sensor here can actually go head to head with the Galaxy S22 Ultra and the Pixel 6 Pro in very many situations.
Mm,
The their computational photography isn't quite as good, so HDR looks not as good as Samsung and Google's, and low light performance just misses the mark a little bit when compared to those devices. But when lighting is really good, so if you have a low light shot where someone's standing close to a light or next to a light, or if you're taking a selfie with that main camera, flipping it around, and you're standing next to a street light, the shots are going to be incredible. Of course, if
right.
you're moving away from light sources, things get a little bit worse. But I've taken some, especially with the night mode on this device, some incredible shots of sunsets. Those first 30 minutes after the sun's gone below the horizon, where the sky looks a little bit orangish still, but it's blue
Yeah.
and purple. Turn on the night mode on this phone, and it enhances those colors dramatically. It looks like
Hmm.
the sky is a rainbow. So it does really good on that end. But once it's completely dark, it kind of falls apart. But that's what you expect
Like,
from most devices, unless you're shooting with, an iPhone 13 Pro, a Pixel 6 Pro, or a Galaxy S22 Ultra. Um, it's almost there, just a half step behind.
okay. And a half step is not that big of a deal. So,
Well, and
in most situations,
when you compare a half step behind a $900 phone versus a $1,300 phone,
yeah.
that's 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 a big deal. Like that's $400 difference, and it's a half step. Like I would like
Right.
if you were comparing this directly to the Galaxy S22 Ultra and saying for the camera, that main sensor, I would say you could definitely go with the OnePlus. Where the Ultra has it beat though is with the telephoto,
Yeah.
and also its ultra wide camera as well, which is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a OnePlus 10 Pro versus S22 Ultra camera comparison in the next couple of weeks at Digital Trends, and I've been gathering photos thus far, so I haven't done a full photo analysis there, so I'm glad you're kind of able to jump on for that because I'm just not there yet. But awesome. Well, I appreciate that. And now, before we kind of wrap up our final thoughts of the OnePlus 10 Pro, I am going to do a little impromptu tech yeah segment because I have to do that, and I would rather just do it here rather than write it. So, Nick, I'm going to make you listen to me. Are you familiar
Go
with
for it.
Are you familiar with the earbud brand Earfun?
I am, yes.
So I have been testing out the Earfun. I had to pull up this webpage so I could read it because it's such a weird name. Earfun Free Pro 2s that came out. These have been out for at least a few weeks now. I know I've been testing them for a few weeks. They have been kind of my go-to earbud for my iPad because unfortunately I live in the time when I need to have a go-to set of earbuds for every single device that I use because I switch so often. But I use these, and actually, specifically, I used these on my trip to New Orleans. These were the only noise canceling earbuds that I had on the plane, and they did a pretty decent job. I'm not going to say that they were like a bulletproof set of hybrid. They have a hybrid active noise canceling. I don't know what the difference between a hybrid active noise cancellation and active noise cancellation is, but they did a pretty decent job of drowning out like the airplane drone and whatnot. And obviously, what I've always said is the whole point of active noise cancellation is to allow you to lower the volume of the media that you are watching to a safe level. So that's important, and these did that, especially on an airplane flight, which I think is pretty important. Now, these things are tiny, like itty bitty. These things fit like all the way inside my ear, and these are the only earbuds that I have ever tested that I think I could actually fall asleep with them in, because like when I lay my
Super
head,
comfortable.
they're comfortable, and I wouldn't say that they're comfortable necessarily. They're just so small you kind of don't even realize that they're there. And like when you put your head down on a pillow, it doesn't compress into your ear as much as other earbuds have. Now, the one downside that I don't like about these is they don't have in-ear detection. So when you take them out of your ear, they keep playing, and that's a bit of a bummer, because I've had more than one occasion where I will take an earbud out of my ear to order at a drive-through or something like that, and while I'm holding it in my hand, I will it'll be making contact with the touchpad, so I'll
Mhm.
activate Siri or something, inadvertently or something like that. So I would prefer some type of in-ear detection so that you can pull them out, but at the same time, these things right now are normally under $80. I want to say they're like $75, something like that. But this week they're on sale at Amazon for $10 off. So they're okay. So it's $67.99. So they're $77.99 normally. So they're $10 off at Amazon. Plus, Earfun sent me a code, which I will put in the description and the link in the show notes, that give you an extra percentage off. So basically, these come out to $50. And these are $50 earbuds with active noise cancellation that are super tiny, and this is a throwaway set of earbuds, like just in case your main ones die or something like that. These are the case is tiny, and they charge with USB-C. So I mean, overall, these are just they sound good. They don't you don't lose a lot of the a lot of times I find that earbuds will get a little muddy in the mid range, especially when you're like listening to music. These don't do that, so that's always great. You get the super low bass, you get the highs. I always use Roundtable Rival by Lindsey Sterling to test these out, because it's like a dubstep violin song. So you get like the super low bass and the super highs and everything in between. So, and this sounds good. These sound good with that song. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes and in the description below. And if you pick one up, you'll be helping out the show, and you'll have my thanks. But for now, let's go ahead and wrap up our discussion of the OnePlus 10 Pro. So Nick, you can come back now.
Thank you, sir.
You're just like, whatever, bro. I don't care. I've got
Didn't
80.
didn't those earbuds have wireless charging too for the case?
I I
Because
confess
there's
I don't remember.
I'm looking at them right now on Amazon. They're the
Mhm.
Earfun Free Pro 2 Hybrid, right?
Oh, they do have wireless charging. Yes, they do. Good
Yeah. So
call.
I mean, honestly, for that price with wireless charging for the case, you usually have
Yeah.
to pay like $120 for anything to have wireless charging besides the Nothing Ear ones. So honestly, that's a really good deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, wireless charging is an extra bonus. I rarely used it because I don't know. I would just plug them in, and honestly, I didn't have to charge them all that often. I mean, they last a good long time. What's their average? What's their average? I think it's 30 hours that they advertise that you can get, like 6 hours of playback with on a single charge with up to 30 hours including the case. That seems pretty consistent with what I was testing. I think I've only charged them like once or twice in the weeks that I've been using them. I use earbuds very off and on. I don't like sit there with them in my ears all day long. Um, but I would say 30 hours is pretty consistent with what I ended up with. And so yeah, you throw in that extra wireless charging, and that's what sells it
Nice.
for you. I like it. I like it, Nick.
Nice.
Good job. Good job helping me sell.
Glad I could point it out.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's go ahead and wrap up our overall look at the OnePlus 10 Pro. And we kind of touched on this at the beginning. My opinion is it's a good phone. It's just not a desirable phone. It's not one that you will fall over yourself like, oh my God, it's a OnePlus 10 Pro. Not unlike, unlike say like the iPhones or the Samsungs, but Where do you think this fits? Because there's a lot of competition around this price point.
Yeah, that's hard to say. I mean, of course, it fits in there for anybody who's looking for a flagship tier device. It's running a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, top tier performance. If you're into gaming, this is a really good phone for that. And it honestly comes down to personal preference and what you're looking for, because Samsung has a really good competitor, but it is $100 more with the Galaxy S22 Plus.
Hmm.
And you look at that phone versus this one, and it's really hard to tell those two apart as far as, when you're looking at capabilities of the two phones.
Hmm.
So, but as I mentioned, like, you can go pretty much anywhere and just pick up a Samsung versus this phone here. You have to actually seek it out and know exactly where to look for it in order to buy it.
And be on
Same,
T-Mobile or
and
Verizon.
be on T-Mobile. Yeah. And then there's the Pixel 6 Pro, which is priced identically. These phones are exactly the same price. Um, Technically, this phone here is better performant if you're looking for, the latest and greatest chipset. Looking at benchmark numbers. Honestly, in real world performance, you're really not going to notice that much of a difference between Google's custom chipset on the Pixel 6 Pro versus this. You might be looking at a couple frames per second in some of the most taxing games that are out there, talking
Hmm.
Genshin Impact or um, Wild Rift, things like that. But if you're playing Call of Duty Mobile, you're maxing out at 60 frames per second no matter what on a phone that's 2 years old anyways. So
Right.
it's not going to make that much of a difference. Um, but I did notice that compared to other flagship devices that are running the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, this phone seems to run a little bit cooler.
Okay.
And when I ran my full battery benchmark, this is actually the one phone with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 that is outclassing all the other ones. It's lasting maybe 5% longer than all the other phones that are out there, even though it has roughly the same 5,000 milliamp hour battery. The Galaxy S22 Plus has a 4,800 milliamp hour battery, if I'm not mistaken. So it's
Something like
slightly
that. Yeah.
larger. So that's not a one-to-one comparison, but this will outlast that device. And when gaming, to the touch, the phone is a lot cooler than any other Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 phone that I've used. So if gaming is your number one thing and you don't care about having the best cameras necessarily, this phone, I would say, is probably one of the best ones on the market out there until, Nubia decides to give us a red magic with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 that has a built-in fan and,
Oh, they
five
already
other
did.
things. Well, aren't they announcing it next
The Red
week?
Magic 7 has already come out. There may be a new phone that might be
Yeah.
coming out that
Well, see,
we
I
don't
missed
know
it then.
anything about. But yeah, so the Red Magic 7 is out. I actually did a review of that over on Digital Trends. It was about 4 weeks ago, I think, something like that.
Well, I think yesterday they launched a teaser about a phone that's coming next
Oh, did
week.
they? Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
so that was
Yeah,
the one I was thinking. I completely missed that other one though, the 7. So I should take a look at that one.
you should. You should. But yeah, so and and hopefully we get to see a new. I don't know what they would do to
Who
to
knows?
to
Nubia,
improve.
they can think of something. Don't worry about it. They'll
Yeah.
find something to
Yeah.
make it stand out. No, but
So,
like this phone, there's a lot of competition, as you said.
mhm.
But I think you simply need to want this phone for a specific reason. And if you do, you'll be completely happy with it. The
Yeah,
price isn't bad. It is honestly a very fair price for what you're getting. The issue is there's a lot of other devices on the market that are very similarly priced that will give you just as much, if not a little bit more than what this phone has to offer.
totally agree. Totally agree. It's a good value. I was actually very happy. I was surprised and happy when I learned what the price of the OnePlus 10 Pro would be. I mean, maybe not very happy, but I was pleased. That's
I, I
it's a
was I
good
was
price.
thinking they were like, we'll just make it 999. Like it's
Yeah,
cheaper than the 1039 from last year. We'll make it 999. And then it
right.
came out at 899. I was like, okay, that's a
Yeah,
little bit better.
yeah,
But the whole market did shift downwards that direction this year.
right,
So
right. Very true.
yeah.
And actually, I mean, honestly, given a choice between the Samsung Galaxy S9, I keep calling it the S9 for some reason, S22 Plus, and the OnePlus 10 Pro, I have to think that I would go with the OnePlus 10 Pro. And one last time, I need to mention this. The OnePlus 10 Pro is the only 120 hertz phone that I actually see the difference that 120 hertz makes. So still have yet to see a difference on any other 120 hertz phone. I don't know what it is, but I see it, and I get it on the OnePlus 10 Pro. I do not get it on anything else.
You
So
see, I'm the person that switches things to 60 hertz and says, "Who cares? I just want best battery life."
right, no, I mean that's totally legit too. But people make such a big deal about 120 hertz. I've been trying to see it, and I just don't. Anyway, all right.
It's really hard to see it. I mean, honestly, like unless you are looking for it, you will never notice it.
Yeah, yeah. Except on the OnePlus 10 Pro. So, any final thoughts before I dive into the intro?
I will say the
you know
one.
what? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, but I have some
I,
final thoughts too.
I will say, like overall, it is a solid phone. I'll reiterate what I said earlier about them losing their spark or their passion about the phone. It's a solid phone. It is a very mature phone from a brand that is finally maturing. They're not going out of their way to just say we're the best, we're the fastest, we're the biggest, we're the strongest. They're saying we've delivered a solid device. And honestly, for the general consumer, that's what the general consumer is looking for. They're not always necessarily looking for the biggest and best and the fastest and the strongest.
Yeah.
They're looking for something that's reliable. And OnePlus has proven that they are reliable. And whether that's boring or not, that's for the consumers to decide. But OnePlus is selling more phones than ever, which proves, maybe this strategy is the better choice for them as a brand. They're selling more phones as they're stepping away from that enthusiast market and making their way into the general consumer market.
Agree. And the one final thought that I thought that I thought of for you that I almost totally skipped over. Let's go ahead and roll out the red carpet for you, my friend. Let everybody know where they can find you on the internet so that they can find all your awesomeness.
Well, I appreciate that. The red carpet, I appreciate that. It makes me feel fancy.
You
Well,
are
you can
fancy.
find me personally on Twitter and Instagram, Nick M. Gray. And then you can follow all of my work and my team's work as well over on phandroid.com or youtube.com/phandroid or twitter.com/phandroid.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming on and learning us all about the OnePlus 10 Pro. And, I always appreciate having reviewers on to talk about phones so that I don't have to review them myself. So that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Please consider subscribing to the podcast if you enjoyed it. And if you really enjoyed it, I would love it if you would write a review for the show or hit the like button and subscribe down below. If you want to jump on some early access, patreon.com/benefit of a doubt. You can write to the show by visiting benefitofadoubt.com/contact. I just checked. Our phone number is still active if you want to leave a voicemail. I'd like to thank co-producer Cliff for all of his hard work behind the scenes, but most of all, and as always, I would like to thank you for listening and for giving me the benefit of the doubt.